Hola, 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 hola. Hola. Bueno, vamos a comenzar nuestro...
We are going to start our next panel. We have our speakers connected online. So please get back to your seats. And I am going to introduce the moderator of this panel, Lorenzo Litta from BRANDIT, Italy. Introductory video, please. The future of sports in the metaverse, how the sports leagues are adopting metaverse and how it will mold and change metaverse, the future of the fans experience. Tanya Fickenscher, Major League Baseball from the United States. Daniel Zohny, FIFA, Switzerland. Moderator Lorenzo Litta, BRANDIT, Italy. Good morning, everybody. I have the honor of opening the second part of the Congress after Soifira, because really ASIPI's story is going to be before Soifira and after Soifira. Because really she revolved the regular way of speaking in Congresses. I am going to try to adapt myself to her style. Clearly, I do not have her same skills. The topic that we are going to be discussing now is probably less interesting, but we have two friends, two panelists who are very, very good from the best people in the industry in terms of their knowledge of the sports world, in terms of IP and metaverse. So I'm going to switch to English. I am lucky to talk to Tanya Fickenscher and Daniel Zohny. The only thing is that the screen, I cannot see the screen here, so since we are in the post-Soifira screen, I'm going to be direct with having to turn around, so it is going to give a headache to everybody.
Speak about today. We're going to speak about how the sport is going to change with Internet 3.0, with the metaverse, and with all the experience talking about metaverse, NFTs, fun tokens, and how it is going to change after, let's say, all the basics that we've been learning in the last 2 days concerning what is the metaverse, what are the NFTs, etc. And there is like a keyword that we've been listening a lot over the last 2 days, which is creation and creators. Basically, Internet 3.0 is a world and environment of creators. And in this environment of creators, the individual is kind of more important than the organization. And this is like something that like is really disruptive in this new world. Talking about sports, there is always someone that is kind of more important than the others. And this is like the guy, I mean, this is something that like reminds to each of us when we were kids. The guy that was bringing the ball. The guy that was bringing the ball was the most powerful because he's the one that was coming to the pitch with the ball and was saying, hey guys, okay, let's start playing. And like, he was the one choosing his teammates. He was choosing like which was the goal in which he wanted to score and so on. So in the world of sports, the event organizers, the main organization, the associations, etc., have always played a key role in traditional sports, and also like it's thanks to them that we had like an amazing growth of the sports industry. At the same time, in this new world, these entities are going to face big challenges, completely new challenges, because there are new creators. There are new rules, and there is a completely different kind of context. So I'm really happy to have today Tanya and Daniel. Welcome to ASIPI, to both of you. It's a real honor, like, to give you the baptism to ASIPI and like to the new age of ASIPI. Tanya is the head of IP, deputy general counsel, and vice president of Major League Baseball. She's been working at Major League since 2015. Before, she worked at Bristol Squibb Myers. She was at Sandoz, also like working from Europe. So like her experience is global, and right now she's taking care of all the IP rights, including like in the Metaverse, of Major League, of all the 30 clubs of Major League, and of the 120 clubs of minor leagues. On the other side of the panel and of the screen, there is Daniel Zohny. Daniel is German, grew up in Germany, graduated and started practicing in law in Germany, and then he moved to New York. He studied at Cardozo, and then he practiced law in law firms in New York before coming back to Europe and joining FIFA in 2013. I'm not wrong, Daniel. So in a few months, he's going to lead the FIFA team for his third World Cup. Currently is the head of IP at FIFA, and both of them like are reviewing all the topics that are connected with Metaverse and like with Internet 3.0s, NFTs, and so on. So there is so much to learn, and I really think that we are going to here. I'm like a little magician, so trying to find my tricks. So the first trick is a remote, and we are going like to get a little bit more into the topic. And Daniel, I would like to start from you, like to be a gentleman, actually. So sport and Metaverse. Sport and Metaverse, as we said, like there is this kind of potential contradiction, a lot of differences. But like, Daniel, why is the sport a good case and like something like really interesting for looking at the Metaverse?
Well, first, I want to apologize that my background is a little blurry. I'm actually in a hotel room in a Marriott, so from one Marriott to another in Bucharest, Romania, which was a constant joke from Ricky Fisher when he invited me for the panel that I chose to go to Romania instead of Costa Rica. So I'm sorry, but actually they asked me first. So I'm giving a speech tomorrow at the Romanian Football Federation together with the US DOJ. So they came first, but you know, I'm very happy to be on this panel to join you all today. Why is sports a perfect case study for Metaverse adoption, for actually, in a wider sense, Web3? Well, I think everybody knows sport is about community. And that is also what Web3 is about. It's really about building through community, participation, ownership, and not from a central place, but through contributors, which in the world of sports are the fans of clubs, the fans of national teams. So it's kind of a movement thing. And I think, therefore, sports is a perfect match for the Metaverse, and also because you kind of can replicate everything we do in real life at some point. Probably we're not there yet in the Metaverse with giving ownership or at least participation to sports fans.
Thank you, Daniel. I leave the stadium and I move back to taking a proper chair. And I would like to get into the main topic like of our chat today. So, Tanya, I mean, we are talking about the Metaverse. We are talking about these new challenges of Internet 3.0. For many people, I mean, I also heard like in these days, the chats like at the cafe, etc. Like there was a lot of curiosity and also like a lot of questions about this is something that like is going to stay, is going like to be a relevant topic maybe like in 5 years, in 7 years. or whether like this is something that is currently happening. Is it like a big challenge for Major League already, or like you're just looking at it for the future?
So it is definitely a challenge already. I mean, NFTs are, hot and booming. We are working with a sponsor, So Rare, that was recently announced. So we are definitely, it is definitely at the forefront of our mind. We're also recognize that this is going to be an incredible opportunity for us to engage with our fans, like Daniel mentioned, and actually potentially find new fans. Baseball, isn't played in a big stadium, but there are a lot of our fans who aren't able to participate or come to a games on a regular basis. The metaverse will allow, or should allow, for fans around the world to be able to participate the way they want, in a new and exciting way. So it is definitely in the forefront of our minds.
And Daniel, like what is going to happen with FIFA, like which is a little bit the approach that you are having also, like looking at the World Cup. I mean, like, actually I'm not that interested because Italy is not participating, but like this is like, basically we have to create a different World Cup to participate again, but like that's another story. What's like a little bit, what's going on in these days?
So Lorenzo, just for the record, all those rumors that Italy will join because Russia is not joining, they're all fake. That's not going to happen. So point your hopes on that one. Well, it's a similar situation to the MLB. I mean, we're looking at how to improve fan experiences, but I think to really have immersive experiences, that's going to take a while. I mean, if anybody tried some of the metaverse applications that are around currently, like Decentraland or Sandbox, I don't know whether anybody tried them. They take a lot of computing power. And it's not on mobile where most, young people or even us consume nowadays. You have to sit at a laptop or at a desktop with enough computing power to have a good experience. I mean, I tried the Sandbox on an older computer, it just didn't work. So I think we're still a bit away from having an immersive experience where you replicate games, etc. Although theoretically it's of course possible and is something for the future. I think for the moment we're more looking like having companion activations, right? In maybe virtual lands, virtual worlds such as Roblox, etc., that I wouldn't count as metaverse exactly because they're not really Web3. They're still Web2 in the sense that they're centralized organizations, right? Where Roblox decides what happens within their virtual world, and it's still the old model. Like if, let's say for argument's sake, FIFA did a deal with Roblox to introduce, I don't know, apparel that avatars can wear. That would be a normal licensing deal still, where we say, okay, we'll give you that, you sell it, and we get a royalty. But it wouldn't be that on a secondary sale, if it's NFTs, we would still continue to get royalties. So I think it's still in a nascency. It's not there yet. But it's definitely something I think that all the digital teams are looking forward to and planning already what it could be in the future. I think for this World Cup, for example, so for, it's less than 6 months away, that would be still too early to have like a wider immersive experience for fans.
I mean, like, actually the World Cup is in less than 6 months, so it's just behind the corner. But like, also like looking at how fast it is changing and evolving. Like, I think that in March of 2022, most people have never heard about like NFTs and Metaverse. Probably like Metaverse, it started like in October when Facebook like renamed. Like also these kind of like big things that are happening like in the world, the other companies, like of course the declaration of Elon Musk like concerning Bitcoins like in the last years, etc. Like this created interest around crypto. So have you looked at this kind of like declarations, like the different kind of requests that were coming from business? Did you have like a different feeling connected like to the things that were happening like in the day by day, and like did these things like impact your daily practice, Tanya?
So not in our daily practice of IP and, protecting the club's rights and doing enforcement and searching and clearing, no. Our work has been pretty much business as usual. I will say that the business that's sort of more forward thinking, they are moving at lightning speed, as you pointed out. And so our work has certainly increased with regard to NFTs. Those are, we're issuing work with the company called Candy as our agent, and they're putting out NFTs at a phenomenal rate. And each of those does come through my group for quality control check to ensure that the trademarks that are part of the NFT are being used appropriately. And so that has certainly created a significant greater workload for the team. So if we're talking in that regard, yes, we're definitely impacted. Sort of thinking where we're going to be 3-5 years from now in the metaverse itself, that hasn't sort of become an issue for the group yet.
Okay. And I mean, can we say that probably things are going to change in a way that basically every customer, even in this room, etc., is going to experience sports in a way that they've never experienced before. It's something completely disruptive also in the sport industry. And also, I mean, from my point of view, the sport industry, why the sport industry? Why today we are talking about the sport industry among all the other industries? From my perspective, the sport industry has something peculiar that is adding to the value or the characteristics of each industry, an additional element that is the biggest value probably, which is the emotion. So people are approaching the sport industry with all their passion, and they want to see things in a different way. They're so involved with everything that is happening, in particular with their favorite sports. So I mean, we are talking about baseball and football, soccer. I don't know in which way I should call it, but which are probably the two sports that are more that have more fans in Latin America. So which is a little bit your point of view, your experience with that. Daniel, you want to start?
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, I think one thing is that especially younger sports fans approach sports and watching sports and consuming sports very differently. I remember, and I think you were there too, we were and Tanya, you were there too, in Madrid 2020, just before the pandemic, at the INTA seminar on sports and IP. And at the end of it, I went with some people to the Wanda Metropolitano to watch Liverpool against Atletico. And in the row in front of me was a group of, I'd say, well, Gen Zers. They were all in their teens, late teens, early 20s. And I don't think they saw anything of the match. They saw the whole match through their phones, putting stuff on Insta, etc., etc., etc. And I think that will just continue the way sports are consumed and building stuff around that. For example, with the technology available, you can do that. You can release NFTs on the spot while the game is happening. That goal or that hit in baseball, that home run that just happens right there, gets released in a one-of-one edition, and the first bidder that pays the price gets it, and it's super scarce. It's that one thing that you bought. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities of what you can do. Or you can have, theoretically, games played simultaneously on, FIFA, the video game, but with real-life stats, how the players on the court, on the pitch, are getting more tired, etc., as the game in the real world is going on. So these are all things that are possible, and I think that cater to younger generations, because obviously our fan base is aging. That's not something that is a secret. That we need to reach younger fan groups. But also another thing, with all this technology that's possible, come a myriad of IP issues that on the face of it are maybe not right away, we might not be aware, but we also have to think about all the contracts we're tied into, like with our media rights licensees, that sometimes, they get first dibs on showing the best goal of the match for the first 5 minutes after the match. And you can't just release an NFT there because it would infringe their rights. So it's a very, very complex situation. And that's something that we as lawyers have to be aware of, especially when counseling the teams that come up with the great ideas. And they normally don't think about that. They just think, oh, we could do this. All right, let's take a step back and look at what we can actually legally do, which might be sometimes frustrating for the teams working behind it.
And we face very similar situations here at baseball too. I remember thinking that social media was going to be all consuming because they were working at such quick paces and wanting to do things that were from an IP perspective or a legal perspective a little bit, then we needed to take a step back. Now, fast forward to where we are, where the metaverse is clearly going, and it's even faster. And we need to be able to counsel the business, not necessarily, well, in fact, to slow down a little bit, to allow for legal to sort of catch up and be able to give them the advice they need as fast as they need it. And I see that becoming an increasing challenge for our group. And likewise, as Daniel was saying, his soccer or football fans are aging. Baseball is certainly even further along in that. And I do believe that baseball, in order to attract the next generations, is going to and will likely be much more involved in the metaverse. It's my own personal opinion. I actually have a meeting right after this presentation to discuss metaverse and talk about IP issues as they relate to the metaverse of who owns what, where, when. It's fascinating. It's a fascinating topic.
If I may add to one thing here, Tanya, as you just said, who owns what? Because especially I think for sports right holders, it's also a kind of scary proposition, because traditionally we already initially in Web 2 freaked out when social media came along and like, okay, what can we put on the platforms? Because they basically say whatever you put on is ours, right? And or at least we get licenses to redistribute. So that was already an issue. Now we're moving to Web 3. So from Web 1, read, to 2, read, write, to 3, read, write, own. And so we certainly do not want to give away any rights, so it's a very difficult proposition. And as we can see at the moment, the models are more Web 2 based. I mean, if you look at Top Shot, extremely successful, but it is a closed marketplace. It's not open where anybody can buy and suddenly acquires extensive IP rights. And that is, I think, something that the sports industry will have to figure out how that, meshes together. And I think it will just grow with consumer expectations, ultimately.
And then how do you enforce, right? Like if we're spinning this out along who owns, and then arguably I need to protect my business and what we arguably own, but then it's going. I'm not even sure how to go. It's like a new frontier.
Absolutely. And since you both mentioned the younger generation, to have them more involved with the traditional sports, etc. Do you feel that this collaboration, let's say, between traditional sports and the opportunities given from the metaverse could somehow move away, let's say, the older generations? Because some of them are already not appreciating too much certain kind of technologies. Do you think that kind of the rules of the game are going to change? Or there is something what do you see? I mean, of course, this is just in your view, in your opinion, as fans and from your point of view in the company.
Well, go ahead, Daniel.
Tanya.
Yeah, Tanya first.
So I think, again, this is a little bit outside of my area of expertise, but knowing how dedicated our fans are and how excited they are, and even, folks my age and older, I suspect that the metaverse will not change the fundamental rules of, or the fundamental nature of the game. It will just accentuate it and enhance it.
Daniel?
Yeah, I agree. It will be a complementary experience, catered to certain fans, but I don't think that traditional watching, traditional media rights licensing to TV stations, whether it's linear or pay-per-view or whatever, will change in the near future. But again, also that is not my expertise, but that's just my opinion on that.
Thank you for that. And like moving to something that like is closer also like to your daily practices. I mean, NFTs and fun tokens. I mean, like in the last 2 days, we've been speaking quite a lot about NFTs. Why like NFTs in the world of sport like could be like so disruptive in your experience, like the things that you have seen, and like do you see also like the opportunities that are coming out? In particular, like let's start with NFTs, then we move to fun tokens because there is like a different point of view. Daniel, do you want to start? Also because you are, an NFT collector.
Yeah, okay, thanks. So NFTs and sports, I mean, I personally struggle a little bit with the whole NFTs and sports thing from a collector's perspective, because I'm more into art, but that's my own thing, you know. But if you're a hardcore fan, especially, I think it works super well in the US because the US has such a rich culture of collectible, baseball cards, etc. So it just transforms that into the online space, into the digital world, with one extra thing that is great for any fan: the ability to do more with the, whatever you own, the cards you own, and have a much wider marketplace to sell them. Because before it was not that easy to say, oh, I have this great baseball card, and now I have to find somebody who maybe buy it, I'll go on eBay. But then the issue is it actually real? Is it a fake card? Where did it come from? So the whole question of provenance, as you know it from the art world, that now is easily provable. It's all on the blockchain. Everybody knows who sold the card first, where it came from, who bought it, for how much. So there is no lying about that. It's all, you can all check it on the blockchain. So I think that is a great value added when it comes to collectibles. On the other hand, while it is also a great opportunity for sports, it is also kind of a risk, more from a reputational point of view. You have to get it right, because it is such a community-driven proposition that if you, as an organization, just see it, which it is, as a new revenue stream, which is great. It came out of nowhere, right? I mean, sports organizations for years now have been thinking about, okay, how can we get into new revenue streams? And suddenly NFTs came up that nobody had thought about, and they are a new revenue stream. But you have to do it right, because otherwise I think the fan base will look at it simply as a cash grab, as, sports organizations, clubs, leagues, just trying to make more money without giving anything back, adding any value. So that is, I think, the difficult part about it.
And I mean, like Tanya, since Daniel threw the ball in your field, I mean, like, what's a little bit your experience? Because I know you've been dealing with like thousands of NFTs.
Yeah, I mean, they are clearly a thing that is great value and is exciting to a certain group of our fans, which I think is tremendous. And I think that NFTs, I know maybe 6 months ago, 7 months ago, we were all like, is this a fad that's going to be gone in, a few minutes? And it clearly, they are some staying power. And I think that's great, because I love having another opportunity for the business to be able to interact and engage with the fans. So I think NFTs are certainly here to stay, and are just that, a good engagement tool. I think also with regard to fan tokens, if we're going to switch over to that area, it's clear that I know some of the clubs are already using fan tokens as tickets. And I think that that is just also another next step in the way we market and interact with the fans.
Daniel, like since you are also in charge like of ticketing FIFA, I mean, like, so what's a little bit like your point of view on fan tokens, like of the change? I mean, also, I don't know if this is something that you are already like planning for the following World Cup. I mean, like to have all the tickets with fan tokens.
So I'm not in charge of ticketing exactly. That would be a little bit of a big
from the legal
task.
perspective.
There's a team of like 70 people working on ticketing at FIFA. No, I'm in charge of ticketing enforcement. So making sure that that there's no unauthorized uses of tickets or dealing with those, because we do not allow the resale of our tickets. So in our terms and conditions, you're not allowed to resell tickets apart from on our own platform, which is, I think, something quite common in a lot of countries or a lot of organizations, not that common in the US. The US has a different model where the secondary market is, the leagues collaborate with the secondary market. And I'm also interested to see how that will work for the next World Cup that's in 2026 in the US. But NFTs are an amazing opportunity when it comes to tickets. Because number one, what you could do from our perspective of if you wanted to close off resale, well, you put it in the smart contract that the ticket is not resellable, or it's only resellable up to 10% over face value or whatever. So you can really kind of govern ticket resale, and you can also say where, if it's sold in the secondary market, where the percentages go. So that's, I think, a great tool. But other than that, much more when it comes to fan engagement, NFT tickets have the great possibility of saying, hey, so you went to this, whatever, you went to, let's take baseball, Yankees against the Red Sox, and this was a particularly amazing game where something, I don't know, I don't really understand baseball, but where something amazing happened. And if you are a ticket holder of that game, we will do a special NFT drop, so for free, and it's proven by that you hold the ticket in your wallet, you get a special memorabilia NFT for that. Or with the ticket that you hold, or maybe as a season ticket holder, you get the possibility of money can't buy experiences like, meet player X of team Y. And just because you hold a season ticket, that is possible, and it makes it much easier. And even if then you get that possibility, but you don't want it, well, you can sell it because you have the token. You can sell it simply as a fan, commercialize it, which normally in a normal sweepstakes you can't, right? It's never transferable because it's just too complicated. But with an NFT, that's doable because it's the token that gets transferred, and with it, the right to do whatever is embodied by that. So I think in the future, there will be a lot of use cases, so utility to NFTs that we don't anticipate yet, which will be a great chance for sports.
Thank you to both of you. I mean, like I would say that in my experience, like representing athletes, I've been facing like more and more, in particular, like in the last 6 months, 5 months, players like approaching me and like saying, well, I want to create my NFTs, I want to create like fan tokens, I want to like sell these kind of experiences. And this is like happening in particular, like with the players that are like below 23, that are like more, let's say, how can I say, used to this kind of new words and new opportunities. But like surprisingly, it's coming in particular like from athletes that are retired, because like this is a way like for them to continue having like a direct engagement with the fans and also like to get significant revenues. And this is like happening in every kind of sport, because like at the end, each of us like is probably like I don't know, a sports idol, a sport like hero. And we would like to have, I don't know, dinner with him, like once, like asking about a certain kind of shoot that he made, and so on. I don't know how many questions I would make to Michael Jordan, like about different moments of his career. For instance, like I would happily buy like a fun token where I can sit with him and like stay with him like for 15 minutes and discuss about those kind of things. So there are like different angles in which like in the sports industries, NFTs and fun tokens can be seen. Of course, in particular, like when the NFTs are like created in a very nice way, as I mean, it happened with those, for instance, that were shown by Soifira. I think that there is like really a big value and a huge opportunity. Also, like from our perspective as IP lawyers, because like we can also give opportunities to our clients, in particular, like when our clients like were celebrities at a certain point of their life, their career. So now moving like into something that like is a little bit more boring, and I know, I mean, that like lunch is quite close, and we are like in the middle between, I mean, waiting before lunch, so it's not like really the greatest moment like to speak about these kinds of things of law, after like dancing and like jumping all together with Safira. But I think that there is like something important like to discuss, in particular like concerning what is going to happen, if any, in our own legal industry, like the different challenges that we are facing. So let's try like to get into these points like a little bit together. Let's start from prosecution, like from portfolio management, etc. Tanya, like how do you see the next challenges?
That's a great question, and I know that there are a few companies are out there that are, you know, filing and registering for virtual goods in anticipating, sort of thinking ahead. I'm not there yet, I will confess. Do we take it? I feel like if I'm filing for jerseys, baseball jerseys, and caps in class 25, that should cover both the world in real life and also in the metaverse. I confess, be old-fashioned in that review and that thought process, and if that's the case, then in a couple of years we'll be doing a scramble of additional filings. I just think it would be, if we were to rely only on class 9, it would sort of turn the whole trademark filing system upside down and on its head. Maybe there'll be a whole new trademark office and trademark filings procedure in the metaverse. That is, you know, who knows, we'll see. But for right now, it's been pretty much business as usual from our portfolio review. Now, that being said, are we taking more, a stronger look at class 9 filings? Yes, undoubtedly we are.
So you're not announcing to all your counsels in the room like that they are going like to receive orders like for filing trademarks in class 9, 38, 41, 42, whatever in the very next days, right?
No, that's not happening, unfortunately for them, or fortunately, depending on how they look at it.
Daniel, what about you? You need more coverage because of the World Cup.
So it's not like that we suddenly sprung to action and, you know, filed additional specifications for marks that were already applied for. However, for new filings, we did update our standard goods and services list. So we did include, you know, virtual goods, downloadable virtual goods. We did include blockchain. We did include 35 as, you know, online marketplaces for sale of virtual goods or NFTs, etc. So we updated our list of goods and services in that respect. But we didn't create a whole new filing program. So, but going forward, when we file new applications, we will include that. But okay. Normally, I mean, the classes in and of themselves were already covered anyway, but we added to the list of goods and services.
So you didn't add new classes?
No, because in the widest sense, we already file, or we do file in 38 classes to cover all the sponsors, goods and services. So 9 anyway is covered, right? Because there's somehow always some kind of tech sponsor, right? Or apps or whatever. 35 advertising is covered always, or online sales, brick and mortar sales. 38 is covered, 41 is covered, entertainment service, 42 is covered, so it's covered anyway. We just added to the list.
That's interesting.
But I agree with you, especially in the US, I wouldn't be that worried if you always think about, you know, how broadly classes are conceived. However, often, especially also in Latin America, sometimes just is narrowed down. Do you have class 9? No, you don't. Okay, well, too bad, you know. So, yeah.
And like moving to monitoring and enforcement, I mean, like, do you see different like ways to look at that, considering the challenges of Internet 3.0? Tanya, like, are you doing like something different? Are you like doing more online activities? If you can tell us a little bit of how you are structuring it.
Is that to me or to Daniel? Sorry, I didn't.
To you, Tanya, sorry.
To me, yes. So our monitoring is pretty online, is already pretty extensive. You know, in apps, on the internet, on your standard internet and your internet 2.0 to a certain extent. We haven't developed a real monitoring program for the metaverse per se, but I would say that a good 25 to 50% of our enforcement is in the online world. And we're constantly learning and constantly talking with others to make sure that we are sort of ahead of the game, as it were.
Daniel?
Yeah, from our perspective, so we have enforced on various NFT marketplaces, especially on OpenSea, which surprisingly, their enforcement or their takedown procedure is rather quick. They're doing their homework. I guess they want to be accepted and they want to work with brands, so they're trying to do a good job, and it works quite well. The other question is, you know, I mean, most of us as brands work with online service providers, right, that have modules, so a marketplace module, an app module, next thing will be a metaverse module, and lo and behold, they were like, ooh, we should have an NFT module. So some of them already do that, which is, of course, a standalone service that you should pay for. Where I'm like, okay, how is this any different of scraping Amazon or scraping eBay? It's the same thing. It's just a marketplace for NFTs, for digital goods. So to me, that doesn't make any sense. But I mean, I guess they're like, oh, new revenue stream also for us. So I don't agree with that. Wholeheartedly, I don't. I think that is a cash grab, because and I've had customers say, yeah, it's different technology. I don't see it, but fair enough. Where I can see a difference is certainly the metaverse, because how do you police that? I mean, you can't just scrape it and look in there, especially if it's Web3 and it's all like decentralized. How does that work? Will that be kind of a job like doing raids in real life, where you have to investigate, have people run around the virtual world, go into virtual stores, go into virtual events, and especially for sports organizations or leagues, as an event organizer, ambush marketing is also an issue. So yes, if you have a virtual event, well, who tells you that, you know, I don't know, our sponsor is Budweiser, that Heineken will not buy the plot of land just next to the stadium in a virtual world and do a big activation there? And how do you deal with it? Normally I deal with cities and governments, where I speak to them, okay, we have to take certain measures, etc. But how do you do that in a decentralized metaverse application? And how many of those will there be? So I think ultimately, I mean, that is all still a little bit in the future, and to see how it develops, but it could mean much, much, much more work if you really want to enforce effectively.
And then who would do the enforcement, right? So if we're talking about the raids and the, or drafting cease and desists, and like, but based on what and authority? It's fascinating, but it could be completely daunting as well.
But yeah, will it be self-governing by the application, where they just say, okay, we'll have our own dispute resolution procedure, where we have, our own metaverse courts? Who knows? I don't know how that will work, because in the end, where is jurisdiction? I mean, all these questions that are so new and so early, it will remain to be seen. I mean, so far around the whole topic, there's maybe 2, 3 court decisions that are even, you know, in preliminary stages, based on motions to dismiss or based on preliminary injunctions. So there is nothing yet, nothing authoritative. So it will take a while.
And like, now I have a different kind of question. I would call it like the 1 million hit question. What about the challenges that you have every day with business, like the legal risk, like explain the legal risk to business in particular, like an environment that is not regulated and like that is creating, I mean, like so many opportunities on one side, but also like so many challenges daily to both of you. Tanya, again, you start.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, I have a meeting with the business in about an hour about this topic. And sort of it is, you know, another lawyer who I'm working with on it, we refer to this as a law school exam because there are so many issues to be addressed and so many questions that need answering, but it's unclear that there are answers. And so we really, it's almost a counseling, but it's almost that this type of work, we're so tightly intertwined with the business because we're all sort of figuring it out as we go along. And so the business doesn't have answers. We have a lot of questions. We have some answers, and then but the business will have questions. But fundamentally, it all sort of comes down to a big we don't know yet, and it's hard to come up with firm plans and also firm risk analysis when so much is sort of unknown.
Daniel, what
Totally
is that?
agree. And I mean, there's so many questions, you know, it goes from like what we're probably most comfortable with, you know, protecting the brands, etc., trademarks, copyright questions. Then you get to image rights, where it gets already a little bit more complicated. But then also when marketing a product, you have regulatory questions. How are you allowed to advertise, for example, NFTs? In some countries, there's already regulation on that, and because it's all worldwide, it's very complicated. And then it also goes back to questions of contract, of licenses. You know, who drafted the license? What does the license look like? Do we have to look at something else? Yeah, because we're looking at the secondary market. How is the resale handled? How do our old contracts, do they anticipate this? Are we maybe just throwing away rights because they're so all-encompassing that suddenly we're like, oh, and that licensing deal that we just did, we just gave the new licensee rights for NFTs just because our old contracts, we didn't realize they arguably included that, right? And what about exclusivity? I mean, it's really a very, very complex matter. And I think that the business itself, and us too, I have to admit, we still haven't even grasped yet what it all entails, you know, because we're still at the beginning. And also, if I reviewed from a couple of NFT projects, just their licensing, because you have the smart contracts, which are not a contract. I mean, it's like an if when it's computer code, right? If sale happens, then this happens. You know, it's quite simple. It's great because it's automated, but it's far from a contract. So all the IP questions are handled by terms of service / licensing agreements, licensing terms by the projects. And I've reviewed a few, and a lot of them are horrible. I mean, they're just like, you look at them, you're like, I don't know what this means. You know, like on the face of it, you're like, yeah, when you buy this, you get certain rights. But it doesn't anticipate a lot. And they're very basic because obviously also a lot of the projects are community driven, etc. Nobody thinks about legal. And even if, yeah, do you really have the funds to spend a lot of money on legal? I mean, your legal cost might be higher than all the cost of putting the project together to begin with, you know? So it's a really new frontier, if you so will.
Well, talking about new frontiers, I mean, like this is like a huge topic, like probably is one of the most interesting, like when we look at the metaverse and the new challenges like of Web 3.0. I just want to make like a short step back, talking what is happening, let's say, in the real life, where I mean, also the context of arena rights and naming rights is changing with like arena rights that are assigned more and more to companies that are coming from at least the Internet 2.0 or Internet 3.0. I mean, like cryptocurrencies in particular. You have seen, I mean, like for those that have been like following basketball over the years, I mean, like in LA, everyone was used like to see the Lakers and the Clippers playing at the Staples Center, and now is the Crypto.com arena. In Miami, the same thing with the FTX arena. So like it seems that like the companies that are like living in this new world are using like the sports industry as a way like to get to the fans because of the special powers of the sports industry and like the connection, the legacy that there is between the teams, the athletes, and the associations and like event organizers because of this special passion. So like what is going to change? I mean, also like for you concerning arena rights and naming rights as organizations, and also like a little bit in your point of view. Daniel first this time, since like the World Cup is just around the corner.
So that is a question that is hard for, I can also only answer it theoretically, because obviously at the World Cup we actually remove all the arena rights, right? I mean, because if we played, let's say in the US at the new SoFi Stadium, right? Well, we wouldn't, because the name would be neutral. It would then be called the Los Angeles Arena or something, because of course we have our own set of sponsors, and that contradicts with whatever the stadiums are named. But obviously, as you said, I mean, a lot of money by crypto, especially exchanges, is being poured into sports sponsorship, because I think it's an obvious marriage. You know, you get a lot of exposure quick to a demographic that might not be that, you know, into crypto yet. You can look at mass adoption or getting to mass adoption with this high visibility that you get, because and it makes a big splash. I mean, if Crypto.com says, oh, I paid allegedly 700 million for 10 years for Staples or ex-Staples, wow, that's a number. You know, I mean, that is big. And I mean, I just hope that we're not gonna, or not because it happened already, that some clubs will wake up and be like, oh, well, we have that contract, but the exchange is gone, you know, because they just didn't make it, you know, and you'll never see the money. For now, so far, so good. But it is, I think, also for sports, kind of as for every individual, crypto is still a high-risk investment, right? It's very volatile.
Yeah.
So you better ask for the money up front, in fiat, so in real money.
Tanya, do you see it like as an opportunity as well?
I do. At Major League Baseball, each club has the naming or arena rights, and they manage that on their own with some input from MLB, but really it's separate and stand apart. And so do I think that some of these clubs will consider it as a great future opportunity when their contract or their naming rights, arena rights run with whoever their current partner is? Yeah, I absolutely do. I think there is, to Daniel's point, something splashy about it. There's something sexy about crypto, whether it's, you know, up or down and around, and who knows where it's going to be 3 years from now, but right now it's the hot topic. So I would not be surprised if that's coming. And if we play that into the metaverse, there again is a whole new area of how would we go about doing that. I suspect we would allow for it in the same way we do now, where the clubs would be handling it on their own. But again, it's totally untested waters, and that's still to be determined.
But do you expect like the naming rights to be multiplied? Like there would be like a real stadium and like different kind of stadiums in the metaverse, for instance, like from the clubs? What do you think? there could be like this kind of opportunity, like to multiply the rights, or do you think that everything like would be sold like at once? I mean, like, I think this is like something
Why
quite
not?
similar.
You know, like, why not? Because if you look at it, I mean, we partition territories, right? And give different sponsorships in different territories. And with arena rights, it wasn't possible because the arena is in one spot, right? You can't move it and can't say, well, I mean, theoretically, you could say on Sunday it's whatever the Pepsi arena, and on Tuesday it's the Coke arena, which doesn't make a lot of sense because people still go around. But if it's in different metaverse applications, it's in different spots. So do you have to give them exclusively? I mean, I think it's something you could leverage and say, well, I'll maybe not to direct competitors, but to different companies. So one is a soda brand, the other one is a car brand or whatever. Could be.
Okay.
Yeah, again, that is, from my perspective, so far, the speculation is so far because, as we've mentioned before, so much is unknown that it's kind of hard to predict at this point where the business is going to go.
I mean, when we talk about stadiums, like another like relevant issue is concession rights. And I mean, like talking about concession rights, I'm like kind of smelling like the food of the lunch that we will be having like next by in a few minutes. So I'm moving like fast to the final question to you, which is like how you are organizing or reorganizing like your teams in order like to have like the best setup to face the different challenges that are coming from the metaverse. I mean, if you are doing some kind of changes, what kind of like people are you looking for, like to integrate your teams, and so on. Like, Tanya, again, you start.
So we definitely were hiring in great part because of the increase of work from the NFTs. It's not necessarily metaverse because of metaverse, but our team is growing because of the NFTs and legal generally because of the various issues that we're facing. My group, including the quality control, we're hiring a few people. So if anybody is interested, send along the resume. And also then on the legal side of things, not so much from the metaverse perspective, but just enforcement in general, which includes, you know, we're increasing so much our enforcement online, which I think ultimately will at some point include the metaverse as well. And so our focus and just, you know, within our limited resources currently, it's just a matter of shifting and reprioritizing on a regular basis.
Daniel, like, what about you? I mean, like, you are creating like different teams when you have the World Cup, etc. So, like, are you planning to create a special team, like, for, I mean, for the Internet 3.0?
I think at the moment that's too early to create like dedicated team for that. I mean, in my own team, since we mainly deal with, you know, trademarks, copyrights, but from a IP registration and brand protection perspective, enforcement perspective, and we don't do the licensing deals, we don't do the sponsorship deals, those are separate teams. I'm not hiring specifically. I'm trying to educate the team and get them to, you know, educate themselves further to have an understanding of all these issues when they come up. However, the other team, so in our marketing legal team, we hired recently somebody for digital and gaming, you know, that really has deeper knowledge. And she came from a gaming publisher that has deeper knowledge with these issues and the particularities, and also an outlook on metaverse, etc.
Yeah, I think Daniel really hit on a good point, which is how important education is and staying up to date with where things stand with the metaverse, with NFTs, so that even if we aren't dealing with it on a regular basis, just like Daniel, we have various different tech teams and gaming and alike. That's their expertise. But from a legal's perspective, it's super important that our team, the legal teams, are up to date on what's going on in the business so that we can advise and give the appropriate risk assessment. Because if you don't know that, you can't partner with the business in a way that we should.
Thank you to both of you. I have just a final question. Like, it's more like a personal curiosity, but like I think since there are, I mean, a lot of young people that are attending the event, what is a little bit like your suggestion, tip, recommendation, whatever you want to call, like about opportunities like to work in the sports industry with Internet 3.0? If there is like something that has changed in terms like of possibilities, like if you see new areas like to work in particular like for the younger ones, but also like for the experienced ones. Daniel, do you want to start?
Damn. Yeah, got me there. I mean, for younger people, I think the opportunities are right there. Get involved, get involved in a project. Go, like, I mean, Discord, Lorenzo. I mean, go on a Discord and just get involved in the community and then raise your hand and say, I want to help. I want to be part of this. And people give opportunities, especially in the beginning, it might not be paid, it might be voluntarily, but then a lot of the bigger projects pay salaries for either moderators or people that just want to help out and raise your hand and say, I can contribute this, marketing, et cetera, and that's how you can get involved. And I think it's easier than, going to a big organization, sending your CV, because you're already in conversation with people all day long. So the barrier is much lower. And for us older generation, I don't know, post on LinkedIn. I have no idea. I mean, like how do you explain? Well, I guess normally it would be in the job spec for something that you're applying for, where they ask like, oh, do you have interest or experience or whatnot in things Web3, NFT, Metaverse. If somebody asks you, are you an expert in that? I would stay away from the job, because there is no experts from my point of view still. It's way too new. I mean, we're all struggling with these questions that, sometimes I get asked a question, I'm like, well, I don't know. I mean, I can't give you a straight answer because, it's not decided. I can give you an idea or from my experience or what I would think, but whether that is a valid legal assessment at that point is not always the case, because you simply might not know. But yeah, just also for us, get involved and like maybe if you're looking for a new gig in something that has a relation to Web3, just say it. And just say at the job interview, you know what, I'm super interested in this, maybe also on a personal level, I could contribute. And you might be the only one that says that, and people are like, oh, well, good, we can use him or her for this too.
Thank you.
My advice would be just to make sure you grow your network, whether it's through Discord, through LinkedIn, wherever, whatever the next new platform is where people are meeting up. Volunteer, just like Daniel said, but grow that network, because people that you know now and think highly of you, you have no idea where they're going to be 3 years, 5, 10 years from now. So it's just, it's so that networking, and that's what I tell my kids and people at work, DBS, don't be stupid. Your reputation online and offline is so important. That just make sure that that's with you forever. And it's super easy to mess up, and it's really hard to fix. So just keep that always in the back of your mind as well.
Oh, and maybe one additional thing. I don't know how many of you are on Twitter. I wasn't on Twitter really until a year ago, until I got interested in NFTs to a certain degree more. If you want to educate yourself about that space, it's Twitter. I mean, you can even call it crypto Twitter and NFT Twitter. It's all going on Twitter. LinkedIn is a great resource, but the day-to-day is all on Twitter. And the good thing is, just have an avatar that's not you. Nobody knows how old you are. They will not be like, what does this like mid-40-year-old person try to say anything about this? Nobody knows. So you can just be part of the whole thing.
Yeah, be part of the community, be engaged with the community. I have like moving into questions. I have just before like the actual questions, I have one question for each of you like in the room, because like Daniel and Tanya both mentioned Discord and let's say Twitter or WhatsApp. So I mean like since we spoke about sport, let's do like a little bit of gymnastic. So please like whoever like knows Twitter and WhatsApp, please raise your hands. Who don't, I mean, like, so many people don't know Twitter and WhatsApp in the room. I mean, like, I see just a few hands up. Okay, well, let's say that the vast majority, like, knows Twitter and WhatsApp. Like, how many know Discord? Well, I would say that it's, like, at least less than a third. Then, I mean, there are, like, the shy people that didn't raise the hand. The fact is that, like, probably Discord is, like, a key fact together with Twitter, like to learn about this new world, the different opportunities, etc. So like, I recommend you like just to explore it because it's a very interesting, let's say, social network. So now it's time for real questions.
Thank you, Tanya. Thank you, Daniel, and thank you, Lorenzo, for your nice presentations. My question is regarding the before the metaverse, like what we already have is the augmented reality platforms such as Decentraland, and I was hearing that some companies are buying the parcels, those territories in the Decentraland, and I would like to ask you if from the Major League of Baseball or FIFA, if you will have think about this of buying this property, because in the end it will be the place where in the metaverse you will sell the products or services. If you already have think about it, or maybe if you already buy it, and I understand it, maybe this is confidential information, if you already bought those properties, but that will be like my point.
Who wants to start? Tanya, Daniel?
I can start.
Quick answers, because like time is running.
Let's put it that way, I'm not aware of whether we've bought any yes or no. So I bet like somebody in the concerned commercial teams is thinking about that question, right? But I'm not that legal is that much involved in that, I would say at this point.
It's the same for me. I appreciate the question, and now I think I'm going to go around and ask internally, but I'm not aware. But again, it could be happening, and it hasn't hit IP legal.
Okay, like since our time is over, I don't know if we have time for another question. I see like.
The current environment is a fragmented metaverse, and it's a Wild West. And enforcement is going to be an issue for companies big as yours and small companies like the one that we represent. Will some type of brand registry system that those companies, those platforms implement will be a temporary solution? Let's say that one of the metaverse companies implement a brand registry where companies like yours protect the brands, like the Amazon system, and they enforce themselves. Would that something?
From a brand owner perspective, that might be desirable. I just don't know whether it does conform with the idea of Web3. You know, you're talking about decentralization, and on the other hand, we're going to have a centralized brand registry. I think some platforms will just be like, yeah, no, we don't want to do that. You know, we don't want to be Amazon. We don't want to be Facebook. It's a different idea of that we're trying. I mean, a lot of the people behind these projects have strong beliefs in Web3, you know, and it's not about money, primarily at least. So I could happen, but I don't see it at the moment from the basis of what Web3 is supposed to be.
Thank you, Daniel. I don't know if we have any other question. I think time is over. So thank you so much, Daniel and Tanya. It's been an honor for me to bring you to ASIPI. and like to the ASIPI 3.0 after the disruptive presentation from Sophia. Sophia, like you owe me a beer. I mean, I think I can give back the stage to Martin.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tanya, Daniel, Lorenzo, of course, for this wonderful presentation. It was hard to be after Sophia, but you really fulfill our expectations. Thank you very much. Te van a sacar una foto con los tres, Lorenzo.
O sea, en el medio yo...
Sí, saca mientras. Por favor, ya vamos.
Now we are going for lunch, and there are a couple of important announcements. First, the evening cocktail. Daniel, what happened?
El cóctel de la noche.
Tonight's cocktail is going to start, instead of 5, it's going to start at 6:30 until 8:30 or 9, or until weekend. So we have more time free in the afternoon before the evening cocktail in the same place, which is the lobby. We have lunch in the same place as we did yesterday. And the race, the results of the race are in the secretariat. Medals will be given to the first places, men and women, and in the evening we will be giving them out. We'll meet again at 2 p.m. to start our last panel of the day and the seminar. Thank you very much.
Open up your eyes, then you realize you're a stand of my everlasting love. Need you by my side, but to plead my pride, you'll never be denied.